So I'm back. Sorry, I didn't manage to pause. Instead, I stopped and started a new video here. So I've finished number 5. So I went ahead and changed the width of the section and aside elements using this little formula. So I had already done the section, and now I'm using the aside. So I'm just taking the pixels that were there divided by the base pixels that I originally had on the body, which was 800. Multiply that by 100 and you'll get the percentage. So if you type that in, you'll get 26.875. I stick the percent sign behind it, put it in as the width, and I'm done. So I did that with the section width, the aside width, the A elements within the unordered list in the nav menu. So go up to the nav menu ULLIA, so the anchor within the nav menu, and I did the math again, put 20% down. So I'm adding comments here. You don't have to have those comments in, but it's a reasonable place to put comments. If you're wondering where you might want to have comments. So one reasonable place is, if you do the math and you may have to go back and fix math later. So keep that in mind. And also, this is a good reminder to keep your CSS organized. So if your CSS is organized, then it's easy to find where you need to make these changes. So for example, I knew all of my styles for my nav menu were in this particular area, in this little grouping in my CSS. So then I just had to look in there to find the A in the nav menu. So just keep that in mind. Keep yourself organized if you can. And let's see, so then I did the same for the left and right padding for the image in the header, and the left and right padding for the section, and the left padding for the aside. Just like I said before, we won't worry about the top and bottom paddings and margins, because we actually want to have a little bit of space, and we don't mind if the user, in fact, we want the user to scroll up and down, but we want to adjust the responsiveness of the width. Then in number 6 is test the changes in Chrome, which I've done, and just like you see, it doesn't work the way we wanted it to, or the way it would look reasonable. So now in number 7, we need to move the style rule that sets the width of the A elements, of these A elements, off of or out of this rule set. So we're going to cut that out. I'm doing a Control X there. And I'm moving it into the LI elements. So that, again, if I'm organized, it's in my rule set right above. Just make a space and paste that in. I can get rid of this blank line. I don't need a blank line. I'll try to keep myself clean there. And so now I've set the width, not of the anchor itself. So remember, the anchor is just the link. Is just the link itself. But the list item contains that. So sometimes I'll find myself setting a width on one thing, and it turns out to, or I'll set a size, or I'll change something on one element, but it turns out that I actually need to adjust it on a level higher or a level lower, something that's nested in or that was nested in it. And some of that is just a matter of kind of playing with it and seeing what works. But it makes sense in this case that the list item itself is what we want to be resized. And in fact, naturally, last week, when I was doing that exercise, I wanted to set it on the list item, but the instructions told me to set it on the anchor. So anyway, now we're getting the set. And if I save that and I refresh, now it looks like the nav bar looks like I wanted it to look, at least at that point. So over here, the submenu doesn't, but we're still going to leave it as it is for the time being. Let's see. And then I think that's it. And then in 8, so it says that it extends beyond the side of the page, but I'm not finding that to actually be true. My nav bar doesn't extend beyond. So don't be concerned if the book says that maybe it will do something and in fact it doesn't do exactly what you said, because like I said, or what the textbook expected. Because just like I said earlier, some of the changes that we're making now won't take effect or have to be built in conjunction with other style changes that we'll make. So keep that in mind as you're working along, and don't get hung up if it doesn't look wrong in the same way that the book says that it should be wrong. So just kind of keep moving. So let's not worry too much about that. Yeah, no, that looks just fine. Okay. And then, oh, yes. So then if you, it does say though in 9, and do check this. If you move the page smaller to the point where it doesn't have space, ours actually isn't. So interestingly, sometimes when I do the same thing in Chrome, it does, and other times it doesn't. So I wouldn't be too concerned about it at this point. We're going to continue working on this and make this truly responsive anyway. Okay. And next we will make the image scalable. So that's in 11 and 12. So display HTML for the page. And notice that the image element for the image in the article doesn't contain width or height. So if I go to this HTML and I look at the image that's the logo, that's not it, the image inside this article, that it doesn't have in this image tag, there's no width or height. That's fine. At this point, it is just displaying at the size that the image was saved at, so it's default size. But we're going to set a max width property and set a min width, so it won't, when it does scale, it won't scale too small. So I'm going to go back to my main.css. I'm going to find that image, and that image is down here in my article. Now I also could have found that. Are you aware that you can find that by using, I'm sorry, not that. You can use the find. You can use Control F and look for image, and it will take you to where that is found. So of course we have multiple images in here. So you'll have to find the one you're actually working on, but it might be easier for you to use the Control F and look for something if you know that it's supposed to be there. All right, so I'm in the article image, and here I want to set the max width, width to be 40%, and the min width, not as a percentage, because again, I don't want it to scale too small, but to 150 pixels. Because the image would just kind of look silly if it's smaller than that even. So, so it's now taking up no more than 40% because that's the maximum. And if I go to smaller, it gets smaller, but the smallest it's going to get is 150 pixels. It's not going to get any smaller than that. Okay. And that's all I'm going to do for this time. Whoops, sorry. That's all I'm going to do for this time. Make sure I save everything, and that will get us through number 12.